Hey, welcome to Too Hard, Too Fast podcast. In this episode, we're here in San Antonio, Texas at the Wonderland's Mall of Americas. I think I said it wrong anyways when we restarted it. But we're in for a treat, a scary treat. We're at the Texas Horror Museum. I'm joined by Sergio, the mastermind behind the museum. And I'll show you some other things around here, but he is also a makeup effects artist.
That's right.
So we're gonna get to know Sergio. We're gonna get to know about this place right here in San Antonio, and the things that he has done and how he got started into it. And then we'll have fun with it and see where it goes. But let's sit back, buckle up. Let's go too hard, too fast. Hey.
Hey everybody, this is Sergio Guerra from the Texas Horror Museum, and this is Going Too Hard, Too Fast.
Come here, enjoy some leyendas. All right, Sergio. Is it Sergio or Sergio?
It's Sergio, really, but most people just say Sergio. I'm good with either one.
Same. I tell people Jorge. That's my name, but I'm usually everybody just calls me George too.
Right.
So I just wanted to make sure I respected because there's some people who go, dude, you got to stop calling yourself George. It's Jorge. I'm like, yeah, I know.
I'm totally fine with either way.
Perfect. So before we get talking about the museum itself, and I want to make sure I'm saying it correctly, the Texas Horror Museum, and we did a little walkthrough. It was actually, even though it was quick, it was pretty awesome. You know, a lot of the stuff in there. You did all the I guess what would you call it? The
creatures
artwork?
and
Creatures?
exhibits. Yeah.
Perfect. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But I kind of want to know first, how did you get into doing makeup effects?
Well, I've always loved Halloween and horror movies. So ever since I was a kid, I would watch all the old Universal monsters and things like that, you know? And I started doing makeup on myself. So for like kindergarten, we did this... I was living in Mexico, and we did this parade with everyone made up in costumes, and I went as Frankenstein, or Frankenstein's monster, and we did this. It was like a zombie walk before there was a zombie walk. You know, it was over like about a mile from the school to the park, and I won that contest. So it kind of spurred me to the next year to do more makeup, and little by little, like every year, as soon as Halloween would get close, I would start doing more makeup, and it just got to the point where my brothers were always like my guinea pigs, you know, my friends were guinea pigs, and I would just do makeup any chance that I got. So somewhere around there, I just figured this is what I want to do for a living, and then I did, thankfully.
Did you know that was a thing that you could do for a living? Like, did you know that was a career?
So, thankfully, I grew up in the 80s where horror was really, really big, and all these like monsters and stuff were like having a resurgence, you know, like lots of great artists in 80s horror, you know. So I knew that it was a possibility. I didn't know the road that I would need to take. So that took a little longer. Once I got like closer to college, I started realizing how like limited that road was, and how difficult it is to get started in this kind of field, because nobody wanted to share their secrets. You know, it's illusions. So if you can imagine, like if you want to be a magician and you go tell a magician, "Hey, show me your secrets," they don't want to do it. So there were some books and videos and stuff that would teach you some things. Yeah. But I ultimately just had to kind of Frankenstein those together to be able to get myself to a place where I can actually do it.
That's interesting. I never thought that would be the case. Like, I feel like maybe more so now, because this is on the internet, on Instagram, I follow at least one. I know maybe there's probably another one, but there's this one lady that does really cool makeup, and it almost looks very real. Like, she can make her eye look like it's over here, or have like 3 or 4 eyes. Yeah. And it looks like it's natural. Like it's, but she kind of, maybe not the whole thing, but she kind of shows you a little bit of how she did it, like in the next slides or whatever. Yeah. So I've always thought like, oh, people just share about it, but that's a great point. Like, it's like an illusion, and that's literally what she's doing.
Yeah.
That's literally what you guys do, because some of the stuff, especially looking around here, it looks very real. Especially like this right here, that I know it's on camera. I wanted to make sure that was on camera, because when you moved it earlier, I was like, dang, that looks real cool.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, it's all an illusion, right? But the techniques, once you learn them, then it just becomes about your creativity, like, so everybody gets to do like a little bit of their own thing. And with technology nowadays, it is a lot easier to learn, vicariously through other people. Like if you're just watching them put on some makeup or work on their own artwork, you can kind of pick up on things that weren't available to people a long, long time ago, Because when I was growing up, so like 1,000 years ago, there was no internet, So, right. There was no internet, and there was no internet on your phones especially. But, now you can look up a YouTube video that shows you how to do this. There's also multiple schools, special effects makeup schools that weren't around also, like when I was starting. So I think it's a great time for people just in general, but specifically for this, there's a lot of information out there that wasn't there before.
So how do you, let's say you've already mastered a certain technique, but there might be a new material out there that will make it better, or a new way of doing it. How do you inform yourself? Like, is it YouTube, or is it just you just trial and error? Like, how do you keep progressing to make it more realistic? Or,
well, I think the best way I can answer that is to say that I'm a nerd. I love information, and so I just gobble up any kind of information about the materials that I already use. Even when I first started, I wasn't happy with just learning, like, hey, use this material to do this. I was like, why do you use this material? Mm-hmm. And what about if I use other materials? And so I liked experimenting with things like that and figuring out the properties of each thing that I was using, which allows me actually, and has allowed me to fix a lot of issues sometimes that to other people, they just kind of give up, because they're like, well, this is supposed to do this and it's not doing it, and then they kind of throw up their hands in the air like, oh, well. And it's like, well, no, it's not doing it because the weather outside is a little too humid, and in here it's a little too cold. And so both of those things put together is not allowing it to gel. So knowing information about what you're working with is really important. And because of that, I constantly keep up with newer things, right, that I see. So if I notice something that I haven't seen before, and I'm like, wait a minute, how did that work? What did they use there? I'll delve into that a little bit deeper to see if there was something used that I wasn't aware of. Yeah. Then there's also kind of backwards learning, I think. I don't know if that's a good term for it, but
I guess you would say like reverse engineering kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a perfect way. Reverse engineering. Sometimes there's things. Sometimes I see like, you're talking about YouTube, right? YouTube or TikTok, somebody showing you how to do something like how to, make a dessert. Or whatever, and I'm fat, so I love watching those food videos.
Same.
So I'm like, oh, that's really cool. That's interesting. And I'll see how that how that, what they're working with is actually working for them. And I'm like, oh, that would be cool to make if I wanted like a burned body where like as soon as you touch it, it kind of falls apart. Like I could use that, and then I go and experiment with it, So literally, is just that. Is just keeping an eye out for new things, and then also not being afraid to look at outside our field to see what else looks like it could transfer.
Okay.
So I'll give you a really good example. There's a gel bled. I just had a class here because we teach classes here as well on how to do special effects makeup, and I was showing the people that came to the class how to make some gel bled. That doesn't like drip; it just stays in place.
Okay.
And there's different versions of how to do that, and I've used a very tried and true version for like a long time, which is you get your blood base, and you mix in Cabasol, and that thickens it a little bit. And Cabasol is the kind of stuff that's in ketchup and all that stuff.
Okay.
So. So you could do that and it thickens it, but I've never liked the texture of it because sometimes it leaves a little bit of graininess. And I saw a video of somebody using this other material for, I think it was like toy making or something like that. And I went and tried that with my blood, and it made the perfect gel blood. And so it had nothing to do with blood. It had nothing to do with my things. But I noticed how it worked, and I experimented, and then now that's my favorite way to do it. So I was teaching them the other day. I was like, this is going to be the best gel blood you've ever made.
That's interesting.
As far as chemicals go, there's other ways to make it with more chemicals, but this is simple that anybody can make. But anyways, yeah.
No, that's interesting. Like, so a lot of it is also just trial and error and what's going to make the best looking. Do you consider I would assume you would consider like making sure that whatever chemical or whatever thing you're putting on won't burn somebody's skin or things like that? Like, do you have to be aware of those things? Or how do you become aware of those things?
Well, definitely you want to be, like any material you're working with, you want to know its like safety guidelines. When you're dealing with other people, especially because I do special effects, and like many of us, I started on myself. And, obviously, if you do something to yourself, well, at least you've only got yourself to blame. But when you start working on actors, right, like these people make their livelihood with their face. So if I put something on your face that's going to, scar you or do something bad to it, or even if it just, takes you out of commission for 4 or 5 days, well, those are 4 or 5 days that they were needed in a picture, and now everyone's having to wait for them to heal. So, no, I'm very careful. You have to be very careful when you're putting anything under the people's faces, making sure everything's hypoallergenic, everything's like hygienic, all your brushes are clean, and, you're not double dipping your makeups and your different materials in each other, Okay. So that's very important. I tell everybody that it's like safety is the number one thing. We can always redo a makeup or change a prop or do something. We can try again, but you don't want to do it at the expense of somebody else.
Right. I've never even thought of that, because you see like online when the actors like they take pictures or videos of themselves getting the makeup done, and it just looks so fast and like chaotic. But the fact that they has to be so health conscious too. Yeah. Never even crossed my mind.
You can get like nasty infections of your, like if I'm doing makeup on you and then I turn around and do makeup on somebody else's with the same brush, you might have bacteria on your face that your body's used to, doesn't cause you any issues, but in the oil and grime or sweat that you had, it could travel. Yeah. And then I could put it on somebody else's face, and it may not do very well with that, and they'll get this nasty infection of some sort. So I've seen horrible, horrible pictures. Oh, wow. Thankfully, I've never had that happen. One time we did use a hypoallergenic material, which is KY jelly. We use it a lot to make things look wet and stuff like that. And, that's meant to go on your body. This particular KY jelly is meant to go in very sensitive areas, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And so, for the most part, there's never really anybody that I've worked with that's had any kind of reaction. But we did put some on this actor to make some of the areas that we made him, he was like melting almost, make him look fresher. And after a little while, he's like, I feel a little like, warm here and there. And after a bit, we noticed it started turning red, and it's like, that's not my makeup. So thankfully we had a nurse on set that was able to look at him and was like, oh, he's having an allergic reaction. Oh, okay. And we're like, well, what did we put there? Like, everything else had been fine. We had used it other days. It was just the KY jelly. And that was crazy to me. But that's the only time I've ever had anything. We got everything off of him, cleaned him off well, and then they gave him some, Benadryl or whatever, and took him to the ER just to make sure he's okay. That's
interesting. It could be any little thing. Because everybody's different.
Exactly.
But you mentioned earlier movies, watching the movies and the makeup. Do you feel like nowadays that CGI may be taking away this kind of art form from movies? Well, especially with AI and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I could say, not that it's taking it away like forever, right? I could say sometimes it's sad to see things that could have been done practically, right, with makeup effects, done with CG, especially if the CG didn't deliver. You know what I mean? So it's like, for instance, let's say you had a perfect machine that would cook everything to perfection, right? And you loved chicken Alfredo, and it made chicken Alfredo, and it's the best chicken Alfredo you've ever had. Well, then I can't blame you for going back to the machine next time you want chicken Alfredo, right? Right. But if you go and you say, I want a hamburger, and the hamburger gives you is not that great, it's like, well, my uncle does like carne asada, barbecues, and his burgers are way better, you know? You'll probably wish you had your uncle's burger instead of that one.
Right.
So that's how I feel. If I see on a movie that somebody's using CGI successfully, like as a marriage maybe, sometimes between practical and the computer-generated effects, then I'm like, hey, that worked really good. But if it's not as good as the human being version, then I'm like saddened by it because I'm like, well, you could have just gone the old-fashioned way and it would have been way better.
Yeah.
So I don't think that it's going to take it away ever, because the same thing happened, you know, I mean, a long, long time ago, right? There weren't cameras, and so people wanted a portrait, they'd hire a painter to paint them a portrait. Then cameras came around, and they're like, well, who's going to need portrait painters anymore? But they're still around now, you know? Radio came, and it's like, well, who needs to go to a show on Broadway when you could just hear it at home, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, there were still shows on Broadway, and there's still radio even though television came around, and there's still television even though internet came around. So I don't think it's ever going to get rid of it completely, but it is sad to see when it's used unnecessarily, and it doesn't even do as good of a job as a normal person could have.
Yeah, and then the reason I think of that is that I see it in the comments when we're like a new movie came out or comes out, you'll see those diehards for the effects. You're like, oh, CGI looks terrible. I don't think I'm that much of a nerd where I watch the movies like and dissect it that much. Like if it's good, it's good. But there's some where you can tell the CGI is horrible, and I would say, yeah. And they're like big time movies, like you would have thought they would have killed it. But
well, and go ahead.
No, I was just saying, but like maybe the practical use of special effects or makeup effects would have just made it a whole lot better because I feel it's more tangible.
Yes, exactly, and that's what I was going to say. That sometimes I'm not saying that practical effects are always better, because there's definitely, I'm sure you've seen lots of movies where it's like, what the hell is that? That's a stupid puppet, or it just doesn't look good, right? But there's always at least the feeling of like, you know what? But it's somebody's work. And it's kind of like if you go see a play, you know, an elementary school play, and they have like these big giant trees. Obviously, they don't look like real trees, right? It's like cardboard and paint and whatever, but you suspend your disbelief for the story. And I think that people are willing to do that when they see something that's man-made, that's tangible, and that they understand work went into that. It's like, okay, that doesn't look that great, but oh my God, if you know, they'll forgive it for the story. Okay. And with CG, you're not as easy to forgive, because it's like, well, that was practically like magic, or you could have done anything with it, and that's what you did. So I think that's another positive for the practical effects guys.
Yes, and there was this movie, Smile, that I just watched. Really good movie until the very end when they show the monster. And I was just like,
are you talking about part 1 or part 2?
Oh, one.
Did you see part 2?
Yes, much better. I thought.
I also liked it much better. I thought it was good.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, and again, and that's the thing. It's like, you know, they could have gone CGI completely, right? And they probably could have done something that was more grandiose and all that, you know. But still, what they came up with, like to do it practically and all that, you have that suspension of disbelief. Is like, okay, well, this is the thing. This is what we'll go with, you know. I guarantee you, if they had done fully CGI, and it was the same creature, same design, right? Yeah. But it would have been CGI. People would have been like, "Oh, that's so stupid because it's CGI." You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like the design would have been the same, and you know, no offense to the guys that did it, because I love a lot of their work that they did on that. Yeah. But you know, but the design wasn't maybe the strongest, or it wasn't as captivating, maybe, you know. Yeah. And so, but in the physical form, you can say, well, I respect that these people went through all this hard work and all this to make this happen or whatever. Yeah. And with CGI, you'd be like, well, that's stupid.
It could have been just the fact that maybe having the mystery of the monster was better than seeing it. And
it's hard to beat because you're making it up in your head, you know. So
yes, and that's the worst part,
right,
dude. Anything that has to do with horror I make it way worse in my head.
Yeah.
So I'm really like, I play really safe with horror stuff. Like,
Yeah.
because it gets worse in here. Is that what draws you to horror, or is it like, was there a movie that? Well, since we're talking about movies, what is the best horror movie for you?
So that's a super hard question every time I'm asked for it because I love horror and I've loved it since I was a kid. So I have too many favorites because there's a lot of what do you call it? Subjects or themes, you know? So like to me, within horror, you've got like psychological horror and you've got like, you know, body modification type horror, you know? And there's all sorts of different versions of those with a lot of really good stories, and some have really good effects. And so I find it very hard to find a favorite horror movie just in general, just like I would say a favorite food. I'm a foodie, so I couldn't give you my favorite food because there's too many depending where I'm at or what I'm feeling at the moment. But if I had to pick one, I know the answer I always give is John Carpenter's Halloween. And that's because it encompasses everything that I love about horror movies. It's a thriller, you know, it's a monster, even though it's not like a monster per se, right?
Yeah.
But the you know, white face of Michael Myers, you know, kind of reflecting again your imagination of what it is, what it could want, the fact that you could say it is the boogeyman, you know, and you can't stop it. It just keeps coming. There's a lot of really good things about that movie, and it's called Halloween. It happens on Halloween. It's got a guy in a mask. My favorite, the reason I started making masks was because I couldn't find a good enough Michael Myers mask in stores.
Okay.
Back when I was a kid.
Yeah.
There was just one. And it was from Down Post. It was called The Mask, and that's it. And it was pretty much what everybody used for Michael Myers, but it didn't really look like the one from the movie. So I had been looking and couldn't find it, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to make it myself. So I did, and that's what got me started. So Halloween has to be my favorite horror movie because it encompasses a lot of things. Okay. That doesn't mean it's my favorite in all themes or all subjects.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I knew asking that question was very broad, but it's
natural though.
Yeah,
it's something people just wonder. It's like, what's your favorite band, right? People always ask that too. Like, and it's a natural question. But the older you get, you know, like see, I got all my white hairs and stuff. The older you get, the harder and harder it is to pinpoint just one thing. When you're in high school, you're like Metallica, you know, or whatever, because like that's the one thing you're listening to all the time. But yeah, you learn to appreciate a lot more things as you get older. So then it's harder to pin it down.
Yeah. No. As soon as I asked that, I was like, I don't think I can even pick one. And I don't watch a lot of them because I do freak out too much. I'll say that. Okay, so let's go into the museum itself. I don't think the mics can pick it up, and but we have you have the music going for the museum.
Yeah.
I can hear it outside my headphones. And a little while ago, because we are in the mall is active right now. People are passing by. I heard a cry, and it kind of freaked me out as we were talking. This is how bad it is. What I'm telling you, like, I don't watch scary movies because it gets worse up here. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about it. I'm hearing the music, and then I heard the random baby crying.
Oh yeah,
and it was outside, clearly in the mall. But I was like, something's in here. So the idea for Texas Horror Museum, how did that come about for you?
Well, I do special effects, like I said, for a living, so I travel a lot, and I've been doing it for a long, long time, and I love it. But last couple of years, probably since the pandemic at least, you know, I had been thinking of a way to kind of develop more of a long-term crew. You know, I have a lot of people that come to me and that want to learn how to do FX, and you know, they're like, "Hey, I can help you with this, I can help you with that, or whatever." And what ends up happening a lot is that, you know, people will come, then they'll start learning some stuff, and then the novelty wears off, and they realize it's just a bunch of hard work, and then they stop coming around. So I end up like teaching people, and all that just goes to waste because they just kind of like go off and do something else that interests them or whatever, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But it ends up being a waste of my time, you know. And then there are people that come and learn and do good, and you know, and eventually for them, they want to move on and do other things, and that's great. I get happy for them. You want to move to New York, you want to move to LA or whatever, you know, do more work out there. That's perfectly fine. But still, it ends up being kind of wasted time because I teach somebody to hopefully have a team here, and then, like I said, either they flake out, or if they're good, they go somewhere else anyways.
Yeah.
You know, so, and that's understandable.
Right.
I don't have enough money coming in where I can sustain a full group. Okay. So my thought was, you know what, I need something solid, because this job for me is great as like a gig. You know, I go wherever I'm needed, I come back, works perfect. But once I have to start paying for multiple people, it's just not enough. So I was like, if I have something that's stationary here, then I can have an actual, income to pay some people permanently. And hopefully that'll be somebody that knows what they're doing or wants to learn. And then because I'm paying them, you know, a good wage, they can stick around longer. Because it's not fair to ask somebody anyways, you know, to stick around if you're barely paying them like $10 an hour or whatever, you know? And so, you know, that was my idea. I want to work on something where I can have income coming through enough to pay a staff, and then they'll always have a staff. I won't have to take on as many, you know, iffy gigs. You know, I can be a little more selective, and that might work out. So, anyways, I had thought of that. I used to run Ripley's Haunted Adventure downtown in San Antonio, and I knew the tourist area. And my old studio was at right off of Broadway and 6th, which is pretty close to the Riverwalk.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll open a museum, like a horror museum. And at first I was thinking of being more like a selfie museum. And we were about to start it actually there downtown. But the people who owned the building ended up sending us a letter saying, hey, we need full use of the building back in 3 months. So I'm sorry, you'll have to go. And that was right when we were about to start. So it was kind of a blessing because we literally were about to go spend a ton of money to get all these materials to start building that thing or whatever, and that came that same day. So we didn't waste the money.
That's crazy.
So I ended up having to just kind of hold off, and I closed the shop, and I said I'll wait till next year because this all happened last year. I'll wait till next year because right now it's a slow season and there's no point in trying to find something, you know, pay too much money for my slowest time. And I came to the Wonderland of the Americas looking just for a shop, just for a place to work on my, you know, have my new studio, work on my effects, maybe do some face painting or things like that for people, you know, in the mall, because I had seen a lot of the spooky people coming here. Like, I'm like, hey, this is my people. Yeah. You know, there's like, you know, Monsters and Mayhem across from us, the Grim Bakers, Vicious Eats, you know, upstairs there's a bunch of little shops that are alternative, gothic or whatever. And I was, this is freaking cool. Yeah. And I was telling the person that was showing me the spaces about how I was about to open that museum over there. And she's like, well, why don't you do that here? And I was like, I don't know. And she came down and showed me this space, which is a little bit bigger than what I was looking at. And I was like, you know what? This isn't as big as my old warehouse where I was going to do the thing. So it's actually kind of small for a museum, but I think I could do it. I think I'd do both. And so my thought was to start what I was going to call Hollywood Horrors. So it's going to be the Texas Horror Museum, but our first exhibition would be called Hollywood Horrors. And that's because that's what we all know, right? I love Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger. You can see these guys right here, you know, Darth Vader, just a bunch of stuff that everybody loves. And I was like, that would be great. Just have a bunch of exhibits about things that people love and know. And tidbits. And I was running it through my head. And then I kept thinking, when I travel, I love going to other horror museums, and I love going to see like all these spooky things. And it's always like, you walk into the Museum of Terror and it's like Frankenstein and Dracula and the Mummy, or like Chucky and Freddy, and and that's everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nobody tells our stories, like the things I grew up with, like La Llorona, La Lechuza, El Chupacabras, things like that. I was like, every time I'm working on set, like in New York, somewhere else, right? And we start trading ghost stories and shit. And I'll tell them about the donkey lady. And they're like, what's a donkey lady? And they get all freaked out, They like the stories. And I was like, these are really, really interesting stories. It's just that people don't know about them. Yeah. So I kind of switched gears. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do the Texas Horror Museum. But instead of Hollywood horrors, we'll do leyendas. All having to do with like South Texas, Central American folklore and legend. And all real, right? Because again, Terrifier, Freddy, like Jason, all these things, they're great. We see them, but they're all movies. We know it's fiction.
Right.
All these stories that we have here are stories that are still being passed down, right? Generation after generation for a reason. And they're real somehow, right? Like something happened to cause these stories. And I think that's really interesting. And a lot of people agree. And so that's how Leyendas kind of was born. I figured I want to do Leyendas at least for a year. And then after, because we rotate the exhibits, so every couple of months we'll have new ones, After we do all the stories that we're going to do with Leyendas, which is about 36, 37 of them, it's possible that Leyendas will go on the road, and then we'll open up like Hollywood horrors or monstrous mythologies with like Medusa and the Gorgons, local legends and things like that. Yeah. So different themes every year practically, Yeah. And that's the hope.
Okay. That's pretty cool, man. To switch it up to, because that way you can keep reintroducing people to different things.
Yeah, it's a little educational actually, more than I thought at the beginning, because I just wanted it to be entertaining. But I think these stories are important. Yeah. And so it's also a way to kind of like, for like kids and stuff. That's why it's not a haunted house. Like it's not, people aren't trying to scare you or grab you or anything like that, It's spooky, but it's really made for like the whole family so that people can learn about these stories, you know?
So, I mean, I felt it, and I know it was like a quick tour just to kind of grasp of it. But, the work you've done in there, it's very realistic. Even though like I was like going by fast, I was like, there. I don't want to be disrespectful, but the rat looking
El Colo Colo.
Okay, that one caught my eye, and at first I thought I was like, oh, is this the chupacabras? But I was like, no, I don't think that's what it's supposed to look like. But things like that, like I've never heard of things. El sombrero that you said.
Yeah, sombreron.
Sombrero, I've never heard of it.
That one's from Mexico, and I had never heard of it. I'm from Mexico.
Same. Yeah. From Mexico, so I don't. I've never. I'm sure. I wonder. I would have to ask my mom, see what she knows. That would be interesting. I'll ask her. But I love the way it is. Like you were explaining, you have to lean in and listen. Like really pay attention. And when you do that, that's when your mind starts taking over as well.
Yes.
And that's what I love, because just a little bit that I was listening to, I was like, I'm all in, and I'm already freaking out.
Yeah.
But it's also educational. Like it's at the fun, scary aspect, but just learning about somebody, even learning about your own culture, but learning about somebody else's culture, and what better way than the spookiness of it.
Yeah.
That's so
and because that's something we all share. And, like I was telling you there, the storytelling aspect is big, because you have people watching horror movies, right? Like they're gory and all that stuff, and we love them. But they're watching them with friends, and you're watching them with the lights on, and it's not the same as if when you're out in the woods on a bonfire and somebody's telling you a story. Suddenly, people aren't that brave, right?
Yeah.
because you're by yourself. There's nothing behind you. You hear weird sounds, and so. We really want to get that aspect of storytelling through to people, kind of like let them forget the outside world, the hustle bustle of everything, and slow back down to that kind of like primal, like, feeling of like somebody's telling you a story, but it's also a warning.
Yeah.
Right. And every culture has that. And I believe our culture has a lot of really rich ones. So yeah, learning about them this way. At the end of the museum, this was kind of like a side effect. I didn't expect this, but people will come out and they'll give me their stories. Like people will say like, oh, my abuelita had a run-in with La Lechuza. Or like, certain people like, oh, we heard the Llorona when we were kids. Or the Colo Colo. I had one person that actually knew who that was. Okay. And, it crawls up and steals your life force through your saliva. It's disgusting. And he said that happened to him when he was a kid. Yes. And so you start hearing all these stories, and it's like, yeah, like nobody says, like, oh, I was attacked by a killer doll,
Yeah.
No, that didn't happen. Like nobody says like, oh, Freddy Krueger came into my actual nightmares or whatever.
Yeah.
But these things do. My mom, like this guy actually came in, and his father was a curandero, and he had 3 lechuzas that would come by his windowsill. As a kid, he was 9 years old, and he was telling me how his father essentially put a hex on the lechuzas. He froze one in their animal form, and the other 2 like yelled out her name. And ever since then, that lady, the lady's name that they yelled out, which is the lechuza, right?
Yeah.
She was never seen in the town again. So, and he yelled
like
out
just
to the
disappear.
other 2. Yeah, just disappeared. And he told the other 2, if y'all come back, this is gonna. And it's Spanish, of course.
Yeah.
But like that's not something that people just make up for no reason, right?
Yeah.
Something happened, and I can't say there is a lechuza or there is a colo colo or there is a llorona, but something happens that causes these stories to spread and continue years after years, and I love that.
I feel mostly any Hispanic or Latino culture. I don't know. Maybe I can't say that broad, but at least for Hispanic and Mexicans, everybody has a Llorona story.
Oh yeah.
Maybe not a direct thing, but maybe something they've heard from somebody else. And I feel like every bridge has a Llorona somewhere underneath it. Donkey Lady to me is new, and I don't know if that one's just to San Antonio, the Donkey Lady Bridge.
In my research, right, I found, like I said, a lot of cultures have similar stories, right? Mm-hmm. So La Llorona, big where I came from in Mexico, right? Big time thing. But it started in Spain. If you go backwards. If you go further back, the Japanese have the white wailing woman.
Oh, okay.
And then, the Irish have banshees, which are also crying women, like spirits and stuff. Mm. And so there's different versions of the same kind of thing. And for us Hispanics, La Llorona is our version. The Donkey Lady, I feel, I don't have proof, but just through my research, I found a story from Bolivia. And we'll have the Donkey Lady here, so they'll be part of it. I found a story from Bolivia of a witch that lives in the woods with the face of a horse. And that's the Siguapana. Siguanaba, I'm sorry, okay. Siguanaba. The Siguanaba is a witch, again, that, with the face of a horse. Well, as you migrate north, right, then you start hearing about the Goatman and the Goatman's Bridge. Have you heard of them?
No.
So, but you could probably already put the pieces together, right? So you got Goatman's Bridge, and then you have the Donkey Lady and the Donkey Lady Bridge. So I think stories get like kind of amalgamated, and people come up with something totally new to explain something that's happening. Yeah. And so that's how I see it, at least, that there's probably many things that happen to people, a lot of experiences that are very unique, and they just grasp at whatever they might have heard, and then suddenly you have a Donkey Lady.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I've always kind of attributed Donkey Lady maybe with, I don't know, like with the devil or anything. It reminds me of a story my grandma told me, and now I have it very vague because I haven't thought about it since until right now, but it was kind of like a urban legend, a leyenda, where they're in somebody's house, and very handsome man, whatever, was in there and being very cordial, but then they noticed that his feet were hooves, and then the tail, and then everything else started changing to where it was like later on to be revealing it's the devil.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, there's a legend here in San Antonio about El Camarón, which is a nightclub, and this gentleman, also very like suave and stuff, would go in there, dance with the girls, and just kind of wow everybody. And one night, this one girl that was like taken out to dance with him also supposedly looked down as they were dancing and saw the chicken feet,
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then she looks up and it's like the devil, and then everybody saw that it's the devil, and he disappeared in like a flame. And that place, the Camarón, I'm going to say it might have been a couple of years, got actually knocked down.
Oh, wow.
But the story, it's a local legend here, like the donkey lady.
Okay.
And so very similar to what you were saying right now, because it's again, it's one of those things that people might have a story of it, and then they just kind of grasp onto the details from somewhere else.
But it's crazy because you're right. Like these stories get passed down, whether they get mixed around or switched around through the passing of them, they're still very similar to the core of it.
Yeah.
So like, what is going on that these leyendas are real, or
Right.
to an extent, they're real to us.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, because I'm a very skeptical person just in my own nature. But I've loved all this stuff since I was a kid because of that. Because there's a truth behind a lot of this that we as human beings don't quite get. We don't know. Science can't tell you. But the part that's true is there. You know what I mean? It's covered by all these different, versions of legends and all. But something is happening.
Yeah.
The last one that you saw here, the pistaco, that one was a real profession. When the Spaniards came to the Americas, it was war. So they would cut the skin off of the indigenous people, and they would literally strip the fat from their skin and use it for soap for their soldiers, and then other body parts for like medicinal purposes and stuff. But that was a real person that did that. So you can imagine that parents would tell their kids, don't go too far from the village because the pistaco is out there. And so little by little, through the years, it becomes like a boogeyman. Was like, be careful or the pistaco is going to get you, And then like our version, there's never been an account of the pistaco having all these teeth and open gaping mouth. I just did that for artistic license, right? To make it look scary. But it could be that in somebody's mind because now it's just the legend of this thing that will find you and take your fat and, try and live forever or whatever, So I love that stuff.
Well, I would welcome it and take some of this fat. That is one of my favorite ones with the artwork that you did with it.
Thank you.
I don't know. Do you have any like where you've experienced something like this? And I asked you because then I would feel like I said earlier, I'm very cautious when I dive into things like this. Yes, I love it more when it's the Halloween time of year, which when we are recording, we're in that Halloween season. That's when I'd love it even more, and I want to be a little more scared. But other times I am very cautious. Do you have any experiences that maybe makes you a little more cautious about what you're building?
Well, I'll have to say no because I'm an idiot. Because I would be the kind of person that dies quickly in a horror movie. Because when I was growing up, we did all the scary stuff. We went into the insane asylum back when you could still do that, We'd go into cemeteries. We'd have like seances of me and my friends. I'm the guy that spend the night at the haunted houses like overnight. And later, like my teachers would be like, Sergio, there's homeless people there that are like sometimes criminals or whatever. We're not even telling you to be careful about ghosts. Just be careful with people,
which is sometimes even worse.
Yeah, it is. So in that way, like I said, I'm kind of an idiot. So I sort of I don't pay attention to those things. Thankfully, nothing bad's ever happened to me. But yeah, people will tell me sometimes with the things that I make and all that I'm inviting the devil or inviting spirits and all that kind of stuff. And like I said, I'm a very skeptical person. So things have happened that I can't explain sometimes, right? But my brain doesn't automatically go to like, oh, it's a demon or oh, it's a whatever. The worst that happens is like, that's strange. I don't know how to explain that, And I could be totally wrong, but at least that's the way that my brain makes sense of it, right? So I'll give you an example of like one of the weirder ones. So one time I was working at Ripley's Haunted Adventure, right? We had the second floor was empty. We're barely starting to build out like what would become the Guinness World Book of Records museum.
Yeah.
And but I used to have to walk around there and just make sure everything was good, everything was closed. And this is like after midnight, and we're right in front of the Alamo. Everybody always had stories about things that they saw or they heard, because that was like a killing ground, like tons of people died around there. It's just in the battles.
Yeah.
So it wasn't hard to go too far before somebody told you they've seen a ghost there somehow or whatever. And our employees, same thing. Like my actors would tell me, like, oh, I saw this little girl over here, blah blah blah, whatever. Well, again, I don't necessarily get scared with that stuff, right? So I don't really pay attention. And I was walking around doing my rounds or whatever, make sure everything's good before I closed. It was probably like 12:30 at night or something, and I'm there all by myself. There's nobody else in the building, and I'm walking through the second floor, and I pass by, and over to the, like, on the other side of the building, inside, there's a doorway that goes to where the actors put on their makeup and all that stuff for the haunted house, which is in the third floor. And I look over just real quickly, you just pass by and just look or whatever. And I saw somebody do this and then come back this way, like real quick, just like look out. And I was like, first of all, there's nobody in the building, or shouldn't be anybody in the building. Second, I didn't recognize that person.
Yeah.
And they had long hair, And then third, they're doing this from behind the door, and from where I was standing, the way that room is shaped, like I know it because, I've been working there for years, is you have the doorway, right? And you go in, and to your left are just some sinks to wash your hands and mirrors. Mm-hmm. And the distance between the opening of the door, because there is no actual door to open, it's just the frame, the distance is about this much.
So not enough for a person to be standing.
Not enough for a person to be there and come back out. So I'm like, that's weird. Now, this is why I say I would die in a horror movie. What did Sergio do? I walk right over there, And I look around, and of course, there's nobody there.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to explain that. There's nothing in my head that meant like I didn't run downstairs. I didn't. And then just as a quick, in that floor, there was this broom that standing on the wall for months, right? Because like I said, we didn't use that place or whatever. One time that I went by, also doing my rounds or whatever, that broom, like I said, it's been like this for months, just leaning on the wall. I was passing by, and it went like this, like just fat, like if somebody threw it down, right? And I saw it, and I turned around, right? And there's nothing there or whatever. And what did stupid Sergio do, right? Do it again. I start trying to talk to, hey, show me something if you're here. So there's never in my head of a thought of like, oh, I got to run away, like I gotta leave. It's always curiosity. So that's why I say I would probably die in a horror movie.
Yeah. It looks like people are getting curious. So we'll start closing up soon. So coming close to the end, I do want to say, like, you're right. This place, the Wonderland Mall of Americas, is kind of like one of the perfect spots here in San Antonio. For what you have going on with the Texas Horror Museum, the makeup classes, because the mall, like itself, I don't know why the mall has been transformed to this, and it's perfect because if I want to find something scary, this is where to come find it.
Yeah.
And they have different events and pop-ups and things. They have artists that come here, or actors that come here from things. It's not just like the scary movies. It's other things, but it's very niche to what people are going to enjoy. Either it's a throwback to old movies or new movies that are coming out. There's always something going on here. And so, this is one of the perfect places that you could have it. What is, how do I ask this question without it being so, well, I'll just ask it. What is like the goal for you next with the museum? Like, what would you like for it to grow into?
Well, officially, I want to finish the stories for Leyendas, right? Like I said, it seems like it would probably take us about a year. So we have about 12 exhibits right now. And then, like I said, every couple of months we'll be rotating some in and out or whatever, so that it's always going to be about a half-hour walkthrough. Because I figure if I just keep adding and adding and adding, then the walkthrough will get too long. You'll be in there for an hour, and then it starts getting boring. And what I want is a good way to have people kind of discover and enjoy these stories and leave here with like a sense of wonder and curiosity, and not like, oh, I've been hearing stories or somebody's been talking to me for like 50 minutes now. I think 30 minutes is a sweet spot. Yeah. So that means in about a year, we probably will be done with Leyendas. And then at that point, either expand the museum into a larger area here at the mall where I can keep Leyendas always. My hope is to always have Leyendas somehow, because we hope to bring in tourists, to this area also. And just along with like the missions and the Alamo and all that, I think it's an interesting thing for people not from this area to come see part of the culture, to learn what it is that, that we tell each other, or how we warn each other of the evils in the world. Yeah. And I think that could be really good. So either expand here, or take Leyendas on the road. And that wasn't an original idea. That's just been people that go through here that'll tell me, dude, you need to bring this to Pittsburgh. Man, you got to bring this over to New York. Okay. Dude, bring this over to like Dallas or LA or whatever, you know? And I'm like, I never thought about taking it anywhere, but when we move on to like the local legends or Hollywood horrors or monstrous mythologies, any one of those other exhibitions, if we don't have the extra space, then yeah, maybe Leyendas will go on the road. Okay. So I think that's kind of where we're going to see where it leads to, but one of those two probably be the answer. Nice.
And going back to a little bit earlier when you mentioned the secrets of makeup effects are not always shared. It's an illusion that people try to keep close to their vest. What is one good advice that you feel for anybody that is wanting to become a makeup artist or a makeup effects artist that probably no one else talks about? Or even in general. I know that was just like, boom.
No. That's fine. Actually, what I was going to say, that the good thing is that, back when I was starting, it was very much that nobody wanted to share their secrets, right? There was Dick Smith, and Dick Smith is like the legend, and he's the one that was eager to help people and show people stuff, but there was only one of him. And so nowadays, thankfully, there is a lot more information. Not necessarily maybe very altruistic, right? It's not all that people just want to share their information or whatever. It's mainly that information has become entertainment. Okay. And so for a lot of people, it's like, if I share this stuff, there'll be eyeballs on me, and then I could do more, or I could do whatever. So either way, the information's out there, though, and it used to not be out there. So whatever the reason is, my advice is definitely look around at as many of the free resources there are, which are a lot. You have YouTube videos, you have TikTok videos, but understand that where the information's coming from, right? So if I'm watching a YouTube video, and this is no offense to anybody in particular, but if I'm watching a YouTube video of a 16-year-old person telling me how to put on makeup or whatever, right? And they haven't been working in the industry for a long time, I should probably be aware that, they might not have all their information. Right. Because I've had people come to me with horror stories about like, well, I did this thing that so-and-so, they're telling me like it's this famous person, and I don't know because I don't keep up with, social media. Yeah. And I'm like, it doesn't matter how many followers they have. If they don't know what they're doing, all they're doing is spreading possible dangerous information. Right. So look at all the free information, but look at it with a grain of salt and, compare it to others. And then if you're really serious about it, take some classes. We teach classes here. there's the Tom Savini school. There's like the makeup designery. There's a lot more pathways now to learn these things. But this is the second part of your question, that you don't have to necessarily go to a school. You don't have to necessarily learn from somebody like me or whatever, right? That all of these techniques can be learned, and they're just techniques. You don't have to be perfect at the beginning. You just have to learn the technique perfectly, and then you can get creative, okay? So when I teach classes, I tell people, like, I don't want them to come here. If I'm showing you how to make a mask, I don't want you to make the mask that you've been envisioning for years. Oh, I want to make this mask. It's going to be really cool. You don't do that here. I'm going to teach you how to make a mask so you learn the skills so that then you can go home and be creative.
Yeah.
But we don't have the time or space here for you to get it perfect, in other words, you know? And it's like anything else. If you're going to like learn how to make a cake, you know, you're not going to start with your wedding cake. You know, you better start with other smaller cakes, getting in preparation for your wedding. If you're going to make a wedding, that
makes sense.
Yeah, and so that's my main thing. That anybody can learn these techniques because they're just techniques. Don't get overwhelmed by trying to be perfect from the get-go, and gather information as much as you can from as many sources as you can, and just be aware of where those sources came from.
Nice, I like that. Last question is your too hard, too fast story. It's a funny story, a cautionary tale, or words of wisdom. But before we get to that, where can people find more information of either for you, online, social media, or the Texas Horror Museum?
So right now, the best place to go is on Instagram. We have an Instagram at thetexashorrormuseum.com. I mean, at the Texas Horror Museum. You can also go to our website, www.thetexashorrormuseum.com. You can Google us, texashorrormuseum.com. So anywhere that you put thetexashorrormuseum.com, we should pop up.
Perfect.
And then you can look for me, Sergio Guerra Pics, also on Instagram. We will have Facebook and TikToks and all that, but I think if I start doing TikTok dances, people will just get scared the wrong way. So,
fair enough. I do the same. I'm on TikTok, but I cannot. You're not catching me dancing on there because definitely will not. I don't got the moves for it. But with that said, too hard, too fast story.
So, you know what's funny is that the thing I just told you about the gathering information and that these are all just skills would have probably been a good wisdom type story. Like that would have been good for that. I don't have a lot of like funny stories, so let me try and do another wisdom maybe if possible, because I think there's a lot of questions for people when they ask about like special effects and all that, you know, and a lot of it has to do with money. So, you know, when you're starting something new, like when you first started with your podcast, probably, right? I'm sure you didn't have all the equipment that you have.
Right.
And so sometimes people find it to be a barrier, right, to start. And they're like, well, I need to get myself this particular type of camera. I need to get these particular types of microphones, right? With FX, people are like, oh, I need to buy some silicone. I need to buy whatever. The tip that I would give is that you don't have to go for the most expensive stuff to start learning, to gather those skills. We've been doing this in film. It's been done before film, on stage, or makeup, you know, for hundreds of years. And there wasn't silicone safe, you know, materials for your face. People were doing it with all sorts of weird stuff. So at least now we have the basic materials that are safe to use. So start with some of that. Around Halloween time is perfect because you can get some stuff from like, you know, Spirit Halloween or Walmart or wherever. Start with those. Liquid latex is fairly cheap. You can get fake blood fairly cheap. You can also make fake blood fairly cheap. So start learning the skills with the materials that you can get. Don't go bankrupt trying to get like the best things just because some influencers using them or you see the Hollywood people using them. It's like they don't need that. That's just used to make your job easier. So if I'm working on something, for instance, there's a film right now, they called me up about a prop, right? So they want a severed hand. Well, it's for a film. It needs to look realistic, needs to look good. So I already know it's going to end up being a silicone hand, right? And it's going to have a little bit of movement. It's going to look realistic, and it's going to have the fleshy parts and all that and all that. But you don't have to go through that whole process to make your own hand. You can make a hand out of paper mache even, People do it all the time. You can paint it and make it look really, really well. Armatures are wire. You can get wire hangers and tape and newspaper or whatever, to make an armature to sculpt on top of. You can use water-based clay, which is the cheapest. So find the cheapest material that you can work with, and then as you get better and you decide this is something you want to do more, you can go and invest on the better stuff. Yeah. Because then it's going to make your job easier now that you know what you're getting into.
That makes sense. And it really is like starting practical, like we were talking earlier. And even then right now, I tell people, it's like I have really one good camera. Now I have two. I have the GoPro 360. And that's just for like behind the scenes stuff. But like the main product, like the secondary camera, it wasn't that expensive. It still cost a little bit of money. You still had to save it. But it works. It does its job. It gets the thing is, it's the work that you're doing. Getting your story across into video is the real part, the real work for me. For you, it would be actually making that prop look as real as possible with the materials you have. So that makes sense. I like that a lot. But with that said, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the tour that you gave me. This is a great experience. Like I really was. I came in, I'd seen what I saw online, but now like seeing everything around me, I'm not just saying it because we're here. I'm blown away. Like, this is pretty cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
This is really cool. I'll get it in the shot. But the it phase is really cool.
I've been trying to finish that for a while. Like, it's just no time. Because this weekend, we're doing the it thing here, So I wanted to try and finish. Maybe I still get it done by tomorrow. I just need to finish his teeth and put his hair on.
Nice. No, it looks so cool. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, we've gone too hard, too fast here at the Texas Horror Museum with Sergio. Thank you very much. I would love to have you back on if you ever want to be back on.
Of course, thank you.
But this was awesome. And with that said, slow down, enjoy your moment, enjoy the moment. Bye.